I saw a clip of you guys, and I wanted to bring this up. And I don't think Riley, you played with Zherdev, but Nasty, you were talking about Nick Zherdev. And
Yeah.
I was dying laughing with talking about Nick. I think you said he fell asleep on the bench. And
Yeah.
I started thinking I played in Columbus for one season, and I've got stories like that Nick Zherdev. First off, we see how talented this league is right now and how filthy people's hands are, what Trevor Zegras is doing. Nick Zherdev was doing that back in 2005. Like that kid was still to this day probably one of the nastiest hands I've ever seen on a hockey player. He was so talented. I think there's some other things he didn't put together all the way. And so I'm playing in Columbus, and we are god awful, right? So we've got that's the days Rick Nash is there, Nick Zherdev. Those are the two pieces we're building towards. That year, they traded Todd Marchant to Anaheim for Sergei Fedorov to kind of be the Nick Zherdev whisperer. Like, there's no other better way than bringing feds in here, right?
Yeah,
and,
right.
So we were getting killed, and I'm going to paraphrase with some of this, but I remember I was always close with the athletic or the strength conditioning coaches on the teams I play with. Most of the time, because I'm doing bag skates and bike rides and workouts with them. But I think it's Barry Brennan was his name, and he was our strength coach. And he had us. We had like a bulletin board, and everybody had your own workout up there. So right, hey, you made it for me, you made it for Jody, you made it for Nick Zherdev, made it for Rick Nash. Everybody had their own thing, and when you went in there, you had to do your workout on these days and whatever. And Nick wasn't coming and doing the workouts, and so Zherdev also had a translator that also his name was Sergey, and Sergey would come in the room, and the strength coach calls him over, and he goes, and I want to say that Doug McLean was standing there too because he was the GM, and Gerard Gallant was the coach. And they call over and they go, hey, Nick hasn't been doing his workouts. And so Zherdev and his translator are standing there, and he goes, he needs this, this is what's expected of the team. And so we're going to start finding him when he doesn't show up. He needs to do his workouts. And so the translator turns to Nick, tells him in Russian, and they leave. The next day, I'm in the training room, and they come walking in, and Zherdev comes walking in. And he goes to like the translator, like, come, like this, brings him over, and he goes, tell him. And so he brings over to the strength coach, and the translator's like very disturbed by, like, doesn't want to do this. And Nick's like, tell him. And he goes, he just reaches out and hands him an envelope. And the guy goes, what's this? And he opens up the envelope, and as he's opening up the envelope, the strength coach, the translator goes, Nick said, this is a check for the next 30 days. And he gave him a check for $3,000. Come on. So he was like, they were finding him $100 a day that he didn't do his workout, which doesn't seem that much. So he gave him a check for $3,000. He said, this is for the next 30 days. I'm like, this
wow.
God.
That is unreal.
It's funny, Rupper, because last night I had a thing pop up on my phone, and Richie actually, Mike Richards actually responded to the post that we have a couple guys that do our post stuff, and he said sickest, what did he say, most skilled guy I ever played with. So what Mike Richards said. He said he was just so skilled, but it's funny because when Z was here, he would go to New York City almost every day. Like, like, unless we're on the road, because, he had friends there, but it would be so funny. His wife definitely went every day because we had a driver here that used to drive Z around, and he used to drive us around if the boys were going out, and he always helped us out. It's a little
Snags.
No, not Snags. No, not Snags. That's a different guy. But anyway, Z would come like every few weeks. He'd come in and be like, Nasty, and he'd throw a bag on my desk, and I'm like, what's this? And it would be like these super expensive like shirts and stuff, and I'm like, I'm like, what? He's like, my wife they don't fit. I'm like, how does she not know your fucking size by now, man? Like, you give me like 5 bags of clothes, man. I mean, I'm talking like top of the line that equipment guys should be wearing. But oh fuck, is he funny, man? God,
he was a good guy. He was kind of like against. He just kind of operated it was against authority a little bit. Like he was just one of those guys. It was just, like he was fine. Like I remember we were in just little things that I don't know. He didn't realize, like, we were in Vancouver and we had the rookie meal and we're all out and we're at a bar and we're having drinks. We had this, and actually, no, this wasn't the rookie meal. That was a different story, actually. But we were out, and Nick shows up with a bunch of Russians, and it's fine. Like, our team was over here having drinks, and Nick and the Russians were over here, and so we see him, and we're like, saying hi to him, whatever. And then he ends up leaving, and the bartender comes over and goes, "Hey, do you guys know that guy that was in here a little bit ago? I don't know. They were speaking a different language, like maybe Russian." I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "He ordered all these shots and all these drinks with these guys, and then he just left." And he's like, "Wait, he just left?" He goes, "Yeah, he didn't pick up his tab." So we're like, "All right, we'll take the tab." So then we went the next day. We're like, "Hey, Nick, you can't just fucking run up a tab and leave, dude." Like, and we're just like, it wasn't like the team fund. It was like I was paying my, like we're all kind of chipping and buying each other drink. And so he's just like, "Oh, okay." And so, and the one thing that you always do is like he would, if it was talking about, you'd be like, "Where we go out, where we go with dinner, whatever." He could communicate. But then when Gerard Gallant would be like, "Nick, you got to get this puck in deep," you'd be like, "I'm not understand. I'm not understand." You understand exactly.
The more he drank, the better English he spoke. That's what I found, man. He's like, fucking just talking.
This guy's been fleecing us the whole time. But the last one I'll tell you, we were playing in Chicago, and I was sitting right behind the gate, so I wasn't the last guy on the bench between the two benches. I was the second guy. Zherdev got benched because he was turning the puck over. So Gerard Gallant's like, sit down, you're done. So he sits on the bench next to me. His feet, I remember, weren't even touching the ground. They're just kind of dangling like this. And so he's sitting next to me, and I look at him, and he's just got a big chew in.
Yeah.
Like that. Just sitting there, his shoulders, like if you saw him, he's just like bad posture, everything. He's just like, just like feet swinging. He's looking up in like the stands, like he's checked out. And there's a delayed penalty. And Gerard is like, Z, go. And he's yelling, Z, go. And I look, he's sitting there looking at the Jumbotron, eyes up, big chew in his mouth, swinging his feet, just like not even on this planet right now. And I grab him by his jersey. I'm like, Z, go. I toss and I like push him, and he jumps over the boards. I think he's assessing the situation for a second. He just stands there at the red line, and then all of a sudden the pass comes up. I'm going to send you guys when we're done the clip, because it was like up for like an ESPY for like play of the year that year.
Oh my God.
Comes up to him, and he just dances like 4 Blackhawks players. One of the best goals I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, about 10 seconds ago, this guy was not sleeping like in your story, but he was not there. You know what I mean? And I'm like, this guy is so filthy. He is so filthy, man. And he just doesn't give a shit.